Today is one of those days where you just sit back and think, okay, what exactly are the Lions cooking right now? Because something interesting is happening in Detroit. Actually, not just one thing. Two different situations just popped up that could quietly shape what this roster looks like going into next season. And if you've been following this team closely like I have, you know this front office doesn't make moves randomly. When things start lining up like this, it usually means something bigger might be coming. The Lions already made a couple moves to start free agency, but now we're sitting here looking at what's still available, who could still land in Detroit, and on top of that, there's another move that just happened that has people around the league, especially in Kansas City, reacting in some pretty interesting ways. Some fans love it, some people think it's risky, and honestly, the reactions say a lot about what Detroit might be trying to build. So today we're breaking down both of these Lions stories, because together they tell a bigger picture about what Brad Holmes and this front office might be planning next. But before we jump into it, real quick, if you're a real Lions fan and you enjoy talking about this team every day like we do here, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The channel is brand new and the goal right now is to hit our first 2,000 subscribers. So if you love the Lions and want a place where fans actually talk about this team like fans, you're in the right place. Alright, so let's start with the first situation. And it's all about what's still out there after the first day of free agency. The Detroit Lions didn't go crazy on day one. No massive spending spree and no huge splash moves. Instead, Brad Holmes made two very specific additions to the roster. Detroit signed Cade Mays to be the new starting center, and they brought in Larry Borom as the new swing tackle for depth on the offensive line. Solid moves, smart moves, but clearly not the end of the story. Because now the question becomes, what's next for this roster? There are still several positions where the Lions could add help, and there are still some really interesting names left on the market. Let's start with one of the biggest needs on this defense, edge rusher. One name that's surprisingly still available going into day 2 is Trey Hendrickson. Honestly, I thought Hendrickson would be one of the very first edge rushers off the board in free agency. The fact that he's still out there is pretty surprising. If the Lions are willing to spend a little bit here, this could be a very smart move. Hendrickson is a proven pass rusher who can still produce, and Detroit might be able to structure a deal that's a little more team-friendly while still paying him solid money. Another name that just feels like it makes a ton of sense for Detroit is Cameron Jordan. Jordan is finally expected to move on from New Orleans, and if you look at the Lions' defensive structure, the connection is pretty obvious. Detroit's defense has a lot of similarities to the system Dennis Allen used in New Orleans. That means Jordan could step in and already understand a lot of the concepts. And here's the other reason this could work. The Lions could sign him to a one-year deal. Jordan could still produce like he did in 2025, while also serving as a mentor for the rookie edge rusher that many people expect Detroit to draft. But honestly, the option that might make the most sense is bringing back someone Lions fans already know well, Al-Quadin Muhammad. Muhammad has already played in Detroit. He understands the system, and he's been a solid rotational piece. Bringing him back would be simple, affordable, and he could rotate with the rookie edge rusher the Lions are likely to draft. Sometimes the smartest move isn't the flashiest one. There are also a few other edge rushers still worth watching. K'Lavon Chaisson, Jadeveon Clowney, Malcolm Kuntz, although he ended up returning to the Raiders, and Jacob Martin. Now another position that could be interesting is tight end. One name that really jumps out here is David Njoku. Njoku is the kind of tight end who can do a little bit of everything. He can pass block, he can run block, and he can be a legitimate playmaker in the passing game. In the Lions offense, that kind of versatility is extremely valuable, especially alongside Sam Laporta. But Detroit might also decide to address tight end in the draft because there are several prospects coming out that could fit this system really well. Still, if the Lions want a veteran option in free agency, Njoku is definitely a name to watch. Other tight ends still available include Dallas Goedert and Chigo Okonkwo. Now let's talk about another position that quietly became important, quarterback. The Lions now need a new QB2 because Kyle Allen is heading to Buffalo. One intriguing option here is Trey Lance. Lance is still young and showed flashes of what he can do when he was in Los Angeles this past season. And if there's one place that might help him continue developing, it's Detroit. This coaching staff is filled with former quarterbacks and strong quarterback coaches, which means Lance could have the perfect environment to keep growing. Another option is Joe Flacco. Flacco might still want to start somewhere, but realistically that's probably not happening at this stage of his career. In Detroit, though, he could be a premium backup, someone who can come in and stabilize the offense if Jared Goff ever has to miss time. Then there's Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo has been a longtime starter with teams like the Rams and the Raiders, and he has plenty of experience managing games. The only potential issue here is that he might want a bigger role than just being a backup. Other quarterbacks to keep an eye on include Russell Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, and Teddy Bridgewater. Another position the Lions could look at is running back depth. One name mentioned is Brian Robinson Jr. Robinson spent 2025 backing up Christian McCaffrey with the San Francisco 49ers after they traded for him. His running style actually mirrors David Montgomery in a lot of ways. He's a power runner, but he also has some shiftiness to him. That kind of style has worked extremely well in Detroit's offense. Other running backs still on the radar include Rachaad White, Kareem Hunt, and Isaiah Pacheco, and that name actually leads us right into the second big story. But before we get there, there's also the cornerback position to talk about. Eric Stokes looked like one of the better fits for Detroit, but he ended up returning to the Raiders. The Lions are widely expected to address cornerback in the draft, but if they do look at free agency, they'll likely want someone who can play both outside and inside in the slot. Some cornerbacks still worth watching include Rick Woolen, Nahshon Wright, Roger McCreary, and Greg Newsome. And finally, there's safety depth. One name that stands out here is Jaquan Brisker. The Lions' safety room could look a little different when the season starts, and adding someone like Brisker could provide immediate depth, or even a starter if Detroit needs to wait on players like Brian Branch or Kirby Joseph at any point. Other safeties to watch include Nick Cross, Alohi Gilman, who actually signed with the Chiefs, and Jalen Hawkins. So clearly there are still a lot of possibilities out there for Detroit. But while all those potential moves are being discussed, the Lions also made another signing that has people around the league talking. Detroit reportedly added former Kansas City Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco. And the reactions to this move are pretty interesting. Pacheco spent 4 seasons with the Chiefs and even won 2 Super Bowl rings there. At one point, he was seen as one of the young rising stars in Kansas City's offense. But the last 2 seasons have been rough. Injuries slowed him down and his production started to dip. That's why this move from Brad Holmes is getting mixed reactions, because Holmes has a reputation for taking chances on talented players who've dealt with injuries. The thing is, Pacheco is still young. He's just 27 years old, and his playing style actually mirrors David Montgomery, who he's essentially replacing in the Lions' backfield. And if you ask some Chiefs reporters, they actually think the fit in Detroit could work. Arrowhead Addict pointed out that Pacheco brings championship experience with his Super Bowl rings, but also carries some concerns about durability and whether he can still be as effective as he once was. Still, they noted that his aggressive, violent running style feels like a perfect match for a team coached by Dan Campbell. And honestly, that part does make sense. If there's one thing we know about Campbell's teams, it's that they love physical football. But when you dig into the numbers, things get a little more complicated. According to Next Gen Stats, back in 2023, Pacheco hit 15 miles per hour or faster on 29 of his 205 carries. Over the next 2 seasons combined, he only hit that speed 15 times on almost the exact same number of rushing attempts. That suggests his explosiveness might have dropped. It gets even more concerning when you look at big plays. Last season, he ranked 4th worst among 49 qualified running backs in explosive run percentage, which means runs of 12 yards or more. And he was one of only 4 running backs with at least 100 carries who didn't break a single run of 20 yards or longer. So yeah, that definitely raises some questions. But interestingly, many Chiefs fans were actually sad to see him leave. A lot of them thanked Pacheco for the energy he brought to the team and wished him success in Detroit. Some even said they believed Detroit might actually be the kind of team that could unlock his skill set better than Kansas City did. One fan even said Detroit might be one of the best landing spots in the league for him and hopes he rebounds and proves people wrong. Of course, not everyone feels that way. Some fans were quick to call him washed after the injuries over the past couple years. But then you also have analysts pointing out certain strengths in his game. For example, Dave Richard highlighted that Pacheco converted 8 out of 8 situations where the offense needed just 1 yard last season. He also converted 13 out of 15 situations needing 1 or 2 yards. That's huge for short yardage situations, something Detroit relied heavily on with David Montgomery. But there's another strange stat. The Chiefs gave Pacheco 0 carries inside the 5-yard line last year. None. And in 2024, he only had 3 of those carries and scored once. Advanced analytics also paint a mixed picture. Among 49 running backs with at least 100 carries, Pacheco ranked 46th in explosive run rate, 47th in longest run, 47th in success rate, and 38th in yards per carry at 3.9. And that's despite facing the highest rate of light defensive boxes in the NFL, meaning defenses weren't stacking the line heavily against him. So yeah, this is definitely one of those signings where opinions are all over the place. But here's the way I see it as a Lions fan. This is a classic Brad Holmes move. A young player, proven toughness, championship experience, and a physical running style that fits Detroit's identity perfectly. And if the injuries are truly behind him, this could end up being a really solid addition to a backfield that already features Jahmyr Gibbs. Because imagine that combination, Gibbs with the speed and explosiveness, Pacheco bringing the physical downhill running style. That's a backfield that could keep defenses guessing all game long. And when you zoom out and look at everything happening, the free agents still available, the positions Detroit could still strengthen, and now this addition at running back, it really feels like the Lions are still carefully building this roster for another serious run. This team is firmly in its Super Bowl window. The expectations are higher than they've been in decades, and every move Brad Holmes makes right now matters. Some of them will be obvious upgrades, some will be calculated risks, but if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that this front office usually has a plan. And Lions fans are going to be watching very closely to see what the next move is. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about these two situations? Do you think the Lions should go after one of those remaining free agents? And how do you feel about the Isaiah Pacheco signing? Good move or risky gamble? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed talking Lions football with us, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is the Lions Nation Report. The channel is brand new, and we're trying to hit our first 2,000 subscribers. If you're a real Lions fan, be part of the beginning of this community. And let's keep talking Detroit Lions football.